this, and then it was they would ride the railroad. That was the way you would move around and feed the hungry. And then and Hoover, he was a wonderful man, but he didn't know what to do. He fed millions after World War I. He was a hero of the Belgians. And they had a famine in Europe after World War I. And he took care of them. He was successful too. But he didn't know how to handle the Depression. And Roosevelt was an aristocrat, upper crust, moneyed people. He would have been a useless playboy. And you know what happened to him? He went swimming up in Maine, way up north, got polio. Made a man out of him. And his mother refused to let him go into politics. He went into politics. And Sarah Delano, she was a tyrant, his mother. Wonderful story. He became a man through his suffering. Couldn't walk, couldn't stand up. And he had two sons that were bigger than he was. They'd hold him up. And nobody knew. And it was forbidden, and the papers loved him, and so they never showed him, you know,
in public.
It never showed him. Yeah. People didn't know he had a wheelchair, and he had to be lifted to stand up. Amazing.
Excuse me, I was looking for the
you
map.
in trouble?
Not yet, but I want to get in trouble. I would like to have a map of the grounds.
A map of the place? Oh, we got those ones here.
The outside. We're going to walk up to the cross on the hill.
Coming back. This is a picture. Wishing only you were there.
Tell us what it was like to be Thomas Merton's confessor.
It was only a few. That's the joke. I should have not told him. He did that as a courtesy to me, to make me feel good. See, he used to go to John James Fox, who was the abbot. And John James Fox used to go to him. And that went on for years. And then he got retired as abbot, and we got a new abbot, and he lived here until he became a hermit down about 10 miles south. And then eventually James, and then Burton got permission to go to Bangkok. And James moved to his hermitage, and he had no confessor for about a month. So before he went to Bangkok, and after James left, I had his confession. He usually say every Monday. He was a good soul. And what he knew I would like, he knew I would be pleased, and he was that sort of a person. He'd be thoughtful, considerate. I was no, you know, he was a giant. Anyhow, yeah, I did for about a month. Just like a child.
Is that when he went to Bangkok and died?
One day in confession, we didn't have much news those days. We didn't talk a great deal. And he told me, he said, I got something to tell you. I said, what is it? I'm going to take a trip. Oh? Well, you're not allowed, don't you tell anybody. No. We didn't take trips in those days. No, we went anywhere. Where you going? Bangkok. Bangkok, for God's sake. What are you doing to get to Bangkok? I'm going to see the Dalai Lama. For God's sake, Dalai Lama. He reads my books. Remarkable.
And is that when he went and then died?
And I went out, and the day he left, I used to go to the woods every morning. And then come over here in the afternoon, in the evening. And I waited on the highway for him to go by on his way to Louisville. And I was too late, I missed him. I didn't see him off. And then I went to the hermitage, and I come back, and I thought on the way home, I was crying. Because, well, and I said, we're never going to see him again. You know, you ever get an insight?
Yes, yes.
I had this notion that we wouldn't see him again. And in order to get rid of it and not take it seriously, I told the juniors. I used to talk to the juniors, the junior professor every night, once a week. I give a conference. And I come home and I went to Lavrans, the artist, and I said, Lavrans, take a piece of paper and draw me a hand. like this, a hand, an open hand. And he did. Now I said, put a diamond in it. You know a diamond? He did, like that, sparkling diamond. Then I showed it to the junior. I said, Merton is our diamond. He's the best thing we got. We're going to lose him. He ain't coming back. And that's the end of it. And I thought that would help me, you know, not take it seriously. And then, 3 months later, he did. What do you call those things?
Premonitions.
I had a premonition. I don't have them often, thank God. He's a good man. He was good to me. But he was tough. He was. You know, I used to, I won't keep it, just 2 minutes more. I grew up in the SED, a missionary order, and we were 100 men, and a wonderful crowd of people. And the way men, you know anything about men? When men live together in the community, 100, and more or less cloistered, sort of, I mean, together, very much together. They go very fond of one another. But how do you keep that from getting mushy? It can get dangerous, sexy, and you know, it's unhealthy. How do you avoid that? You avoid it by an exchange of repartee, wisecracks, remarks. You develop a language, a folk style, what do you call it, a folk way. The way you exchange love, you insult one another. You make dirty, you know, remarks and jokes about each other. It's a way of showing affection without getting sentimental about it. And you get good at that. I was very good at that. And I come here, they don't do that. They don't do that.
They don't do it
And
here?
I was doing it all the time, when I could. In public, especially. And I never knew that it was offensive. And he wouldn't tell me. He figured you're big enough, or you're old enough to discover it yourself without me telling you. In the silence and solitude and seclusion, you heal yourself, you know. Like, I'll give you an example. I told him one day, we have these talks before Mass in the morning. I said, last week, I went to town to see the doctor. I went with Father Damien. And on the way home, it's pouring rain. We're going through Louisville. And here's this kid standing in the middle of the highway, middle of the street, in the pouring rain, selling papers at the light. You know? I said, for God's sake, buy the paper. Give that poor kid, give him $1 and help the poor kid. So he bought a paper, Louisville paper. We don't get the paper, we didn't then. And I looked at, when I got home, I looked at the paper, nothing to it.
Nothing in it.
So the next morning I told him that, at Mass. I went to Louisville yesterday. I bought a paper in the rain. And I brought the paper home and I said, there's nothing in it. It'd be like our cheese. Our cheese comes in a box. You get lots of box, not much cheese. I thought that was smart, you know? That kind of thing. He thought, well, that's offensive. You know, the poor brother Rayfield that designed the box, you see, it makes it look like a nickel. So in this kind of a community, you
have to be careful.
So finally, Dom James took me aside one day. We had to see him once a month on our knees, making our tete-a-tete. And he said, you know, Father Lewis, you know, he's an artist. He's sensitive. You know, some of the remarks you make are not exactly appreciated. Maybe you could cool it. And a light went on. I thought, my God. They just throw me out. But what Merton would do, he'd say, you know, we have enough of these wise guys and these remarks around here. We got people, we have too much of it already. We don't need him, so we'll just tell him, adios. You'd be happier elsewhere. I come very
close.
Didn't know it. Because I'm supposed to catch on myself. But Father the Abbot told me.